In 1983, aboard the Orbiter 4 spaceship, cosmonauts Konstantin and Kirill are preparing to return to Earth. They have already started discussing their plans for when they get home. Shortly after, they successfully undock from the space station. As they begin their descent, their shuttle suddenly experiences turbulence. After things calm down, they notice something crawling outside the shuttle that slowly makes its way toward the hatch. Sometime later, the shuttle lands in Soviet Kazakhstan where a man spots them. He approaches and finds Kirill dead with his skull opened, while Konstantin is alive and crawls out of the ship, but his eyes are completely black. At a research institute in Moscow, Dr. Tatiana faces a hearing due to her controversial method, which might have inflicted injury on a young boy. Although she saved him, other doctors and the boy's mother think she went too far, but she still thinks that she took a necessary risk. Colonel Semiradov observes the hearing and later approaches Tatiana. He was impressed by her defense and asks for her consulting help with a patient. Uninterested at first, Tatiana agrees to help when he mentions that he manages a neuropsychiatry research institute and assures her he will take care of her pending case with the medical board. On the way there in a helicopter, Semiradov reveals that the patient is one of the cosmonauts from the Orbiter 4 who suffers from episodic amnesia and doesn't remember the incident that happened in space. He also explains that they kept this information confidential from the media. After arriving at the military facility, Semiradov takes her to the observation room where Konstantin is being hypnotized by Dr. Rigel, the research director, who attempts to help him recall his experience from space. But Konstantin is uncooperative. Frustrated, Dr. Rigel leaves the room. Tatiana enters the room to assess his condition, and Konstantin is relieved for the change from Rigel. She offers him some tea, which he accepts and drinks as Tatiana observes him. She notices that he keeps a toy, which he explains is part of the cosmonaut tradition. She then asks him about what happened during the mission, and he explains that after the landing procedure initiated, he can't remember anything until waking up in the institute. He provides her with his mother's contact information and asks her to inform his mother that he's okay before Tatiana takes the tea and exits the room. When she hands the cup to Rigel, it burns his hands. Tatiana concludes that he has PTSD and his sensory receptors or peripheral nervous system might be damaged. After giving her evaluation, she requests to leave. Semiradov informs her that a helicopter will depart in the morning and instructs a soldier to escort her to her room. As they walk, some prisoners doing hard labor catch her attention. When they arrive at the building, the soldier gives her the key to her room. Tatiana enters her room and starts to unpack. She then tries to make a call, but is informed that only Semiradov can make outside calls. That night, Tatiana finds herself unable to sleep, so she decides to go out for a run. She bumps into a prisoner, who helps her up but refuses to let go of her hand until another prisoner separates them. Once back in her room, Semiradov comes to find her and takes her to discover the real reason they brought her there. He brings her back to the observation room, checks his watch, and gives the order to start. A protective glass door comes down in Konstantin's chamber, and more soldiers enter to secure the door. Tatiana watches the security cameras as Konstantin starts to have seizures. Suddenly, he falls off the bed, and a parasitic alien begins to crawl out of his mouth. She is in shock, and Semiradov asks her if she wants to take a closer look. Tatiana walks in and stands just outside the door, observing the creature as it looks back at her. She reaches her hand out, but the creature lunges at the door. She is terrified by the discovery. Semiradov explains that the parasite enters and exits Konstantin's body without harming him, and he has no memory of any of it. He wants Tatiana to find a way to separate the parasite from the host, or she could leave and sign the non-disclosure agreement. He also tells her that he chose her because she is willing to take risks. She then requests all information about Konstantin and a daily session with him. Tatiana goes through the documents and discovers that Konstantin was initially placed in a rehabilitation facility, but the creature emerged on the first night and killed a medical member. They then transferred him to their current location and began attempting to separate them, but they have not yet found a safe method to do so, as the creature has already formed a bond with him. When the creature is removed from Konstantin's body, his vital signs deteriorate. But when it's inside him, it gives him remarkable regenerative abilities. The creature takes up just 30 centimeters when incubating inside his esophagus and stomach, but outside, it can extend up to 1.5 meters. Every time it leaves the host, it releases a toxin that knocks Konstantin out, and once it exits, it can stay out for about 1 hour and 40 to 50 minutes. Its exiting pattern has remained consistent every night. Later, she is looking through the footage and takes notes, Rigel comes in, and she asks what the creature feeds on. He tells her that it eats the same things that Konstantin eats. Tatiana also learns that Konstantin has a son whom he left at an orphanage after his mother died. The next day, during their session, Tatiana confronts Konstantin about the boy. She tells him that he is not a national hero as he claimed, but rather a coward who doesn't care about his son. Konstantin becomes annoyed and asks her to leave. It turns out that she was intentionally stressing him to test his endocrine system. She believes that by understanding his hormone levels under stress, they'll be able to figure out what the creature eats. She then asks Semiradov to transfer Konstantin to the civilian area during the daytime so she can obtain a more accurate clinical assessment. Konstantin was moved to a better room that has a TV, where he watched news coverage of their safe landing after the mission. He becomes upset just as Tatiana enters and apologizes to him for provoking him earlier. Konstantin admits that he only found out about his son a week before the mission and had planned to bring his son home when he returned. He asks Tatiana what they really want from him, but she can't say. That night, Tatiana observes the creature near the cell as it exits. She lies down and it mimics her movements. She then notices the creature showing interest in the toy, so she requests to enter the room. Tatiana puts on a protective suit and enters the room. She places the toy down, and the creature wraps itself around it. When Tatiana tries to touch the creature, she slips on its mucus and falls. The creature attacks her and drags her in. Colonel Semiradov immediately flashes it with lights, and others enter to pull Tatiana away. Later, Semiradov visits Tatiana in her room, where she explains her theory about the creature and Konstantin sharing the same consciousness. She believes this because of the creature's reaction to the toy, which she thinks holds significance for Konstantin regarding his son. Tatiana also proposes that the creature may become independent of Konstantin over time. She suggests moving him to Moscow for further research, but Semiradov refuses, admitting that he has concealed Konstantin's condition from the government. Tatiana goes to find Rigel and watches the footage. She confronts Rigel, pointing out that it's edited. She also notices the difference in Konstantin's hormone levels between day and night, suggesting that it's unlikely the creature eats the same thing as Konstantin. That night, Konstantin is given sedatives and loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Rigel hides Tatiana in his vehicle and sneaks her into the restricted area, where soldiers bring a prisoner and put him inside the cage. They turn off the lights and the creature approaches the cage. Tatiana hides in the car and uses night vision goggles to watch as the creature moves towards the prisoner, then attacks and tears his head off. Tatiana is terrified and makes a sound that attracts the attention of a soldier. Fortunately, before he nearly finds her, Rigel distracts the soldier's attention. Later, Rigel reveals that the creature feeds on human fear hormones called cortisol. He tries to convince Tatiana that they are on the verge of a significant discovery and mentions it was under Colonel Semiradov's orders, but she accuses them of killing innocent people and calls him a coward before leaving the car. The next day, Tatiana asks Konstantin to go for a run with her and tells him about the creature living inside him, explaining that they need help from the government to separate them. He then tells her to meet him later after midnight. Later that night, Konstantin vomits up the sleeping pills he was given. He then crushes the pills and puts them in a cup. He persuades the female guard to watch a movie with him. After she falls asleep from drinking tea mixed with the crushed sleeping pills, he opens the back of the TV and removes the magnet before sneaking out of the room to meet with Tatiana. He places the magnet on the camera to disrupt the signal, distracting the guard as he goes to check it. While the surveillance room is empty, they take advantage and pass in front of it. They enter a room where they see several bodies and the x-rays of Konstantin. He confesses that he is the monster, as he remembers everything the creature experiences, but he intentionally concealed it from Semiradov because he knows that if Semiradov finds out, he would never let him go. He shows Tatiana that they have kept Kirill's body to continue observing him. He pleads with her to hold on for just 2 more weeks until the review board from Moscow arrives and he can be released. She asks him how he can stand to watch more people die to feed the creature, saying she would rather die. Konstantin becomes aggressive, arguing that he can't be held responsible and that he doesn't deserve to die after all he's done for the country. On her way back, she is taken to Colonel Semiradov's office. He reveals his efforts to find a way to control the creature and turn it into a weapon, emphasizing that those fed to the creature are criminals who have committed severe offenses, which he believes serves the greater good. He then brings her to watch a feeding session up close. 2 prisoners are brought into the cage, and the creature is released. Tatiana requests to enter the cage to prevent the creature from attacking the prisoners. She tries not to let fear overcome her and starts singing "Million Roses," Konstantin's favorite song. The creature responds to it and calms down as Konstantin shows some awareness. Rigel is impressed that the creature has adapted and can now hear. At this moment, one of the prisoners attempts to escape and the creature senses his movement, attacking and killing him. Semiradov approaches Tatiana and learns that Konstantin still cannot fully control the parasite. He requests that she must learn to control the creature. The next day, Tatiana explains to Rigel that the creature chose to bond with Konstantin instead of Kirill because Kirill had Addison's disease, which results in the body producing too little cortisol. She then asks him in Latin to help them escape. He doesn't want to, but she tells him to be a man. Afterward, Rigel brings her what she asked for. She takes the sedative and injects the guard. Then she goes to find Konstantin, asking Rigel to guard the door. Tatiana explains to him that she has figured out a way to force the creature to separate from him by injecting him with a drug that simulates Addison's disease. This will cause the creature to die within the hour outside its host as she brings him to the hospital. Konstantin is hesitant, believing it chose him for a reason as it was his punishment for abandoning his son. He tells her to run, but Tatiana hugs him and reveals his son's name and age, which convinces him to go with her. Rigel informs them that there's a car outside and gives her the keys. Tatiana asks him to come with them, but Rigel decides to stay. He heads to Semiradov's office and calls the government to report the colonel's misconduct at the institute. Meanwhile, Semiradov learns that they have escaped and orders his response team to bring back Konstantin alive and terminate Tatiana. He then finds Rigel and kills him. The soldiers find Tatiana and Konstantin, opening fire at them as they seek cover. Konstantin asks for the syringe with the drugs. She throws it at him and he injects himself. The creature leaves his body and confronts the soldiers. As they shoot at it, the creature attacks them while Tatiana drags Konstantin to the car and drives away. Semiradov arrives and discovers that all the soldiers have been killed. He then throws a smoke bomb and starts shooting at the creature. Both of them are injured, but Semiradov fires at it again. Meanwhile, Konstantin coughs up blood in the car. Tatiana realizes that he won't survive without the creature, so she stops the car and drags him out. Semiradov catches up to Tatiana and Konstantin with the creature in a box. She admits that it's not possible to separate the creature from him since they have become completely symbiotic. Semiradov takes her gun and throws it aside, then starts to hurt Tatiana. However, Konstantin manages to control the creature, which kills the soldiers and then tears off half of Semiradov's head. Tatiana checks on Konstantin as the creature crawls to them. It doesn't kill her and returns into Konstantin's body. She tells him that she can separate them if she can get him to Moscow, but as government authorities arrive, he shoots himself dead. Sometime later, Tatiana goes to the orphanage and adopts Konstantin's son. It is revealed that she herself lived in an orphanage as a kid.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our channel for more videos.